Hi, Carl. So tell us who you are and when you got involved in martial arts.
My name's Carl Lewis. I live in Wrexham, North Wales. I first got into martial arts in 1975. I started doing judo. I did that for a few years, and then I found a Wing Chun club, and I did that till about 1986. And presently, I'm a full instructor in JKD under Tim Tackett and Larry Hartson.
Okay. How did you start with JKD?
I was a Bruce Lee fan, so I had quite a lot of books by Bruce Lee and people who'd done JKD, so I thought I was doing JKD, but then I met Dan Nasanto in 1987 and he completely blew my mind, and not long after that I met Larry Hartzell, and 12 months after that I met Tim Tackett, and I was with Larry for 20 years until he passed away in 2007, and I'm still with Sifu Tim.
Okay. Who is Bert Poe?
Bert Poe. Well, I think I'll read from Tim's bio on this one because it'll be better than what I can say. So, Bert Poe grew up on a Comanche Indian reservation, the son of a Comanche woman and a white father who left while Bert was still a baby. Bert was raised by his mother and uncles who gave him his first martial arts training with weapons. As a so-called half-breed, Bert encountered much ill will from fellow tribal members, which prompted him to join the Marines at a young age of 15. Bert became one of the elite Marine Raiders and saw combat action in the Pacific Theatre, Korea, and special operations around the world. He had to leave the Marines after being wounded in action during the Korean War. Bert was also a bodyguard for Eleanor Roosevelt, champion Marine boxer and undefeated professional boxer. After the military, Bert worked as a Texas Ranger, a sheriff, and a security expert. I also know that Bert was a tracker, a manhunter, and a bounty hunter.
Okay. Did you know anything about Bert before you went to the American meeting?
Only what Pete Hetrick told me. Pete came over as Larry Hartzell's assistant, I think it was in 1989. And Pete and me, we got on really well. And Pete invited me over to the Wisconsin camp in 1990. So Pete told me a couple of things about Bert. He said he was going to be there as a guest instructor. He just told me he was a badass and he used to break people's fingers and rip people's eyes out. But apart from that, I didn't have much knowledge about him.
Okay. What was he like?
He was a warrior and he was a killer.
Okay. What was your first impression of him when you met him?
Well, when I first saw him, I thought, who the hell's that guy over there? There was 82 of us on the camp and everyone was dressed in shorts or t-shirts or training gear, and there's this one bloke there and he was dressed all in denim with cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. So first impression, I didn't have a clue who he was, and then all of a sudden there was people whispering, Bert Poe's here, there's Bert Poe. So then I realised who he was. So.
Okay. What made him so effective at combat?
His combative mindset and his exceptional grip strength. Them are the two main things, I think. He also had a great ability to read people. At the Smoky Mountain camps, Tim Tackett and Bert would be watching the lads come in for the fights at the end of the training, and Bert could point at a certain person and tell you how he was going to fight. He said, he's going to fight this way, or he's going to fight that way. And Tim said he was right every time. Apparently Bruce Lee could do the same thing. He could just read body language so well.
What was training with him like?
Oh, it was awesome. It was very captivating. It was a mix between techniques and stories that back the techniques up that he'd used in the real world.
What is dirty fighting?
Dirty fighting is what Bert called his form of combative. He said, I don't really teach martial arts, I'll just teach you what's worked for me. That's how he opened his speech up when we were starting to train with him in 1990. It's a mixture of skin grabs, eye removal techniques, neck breaks, takedowns, anti-takedowns, dirty stuff that he picked up from various places during his life.
Do you remember some of the combative stories he told you?
I do, yes. I've got them written down here in a book that I took with me to the States in 1990, but I've put them on my phone. It'd be easier if I just recall them off my phone. So, okay. So I was told Bert's had over 300 confirmed kills. He trained with the British Commandos and got into a fight with them and knocked 4 of them out. There was a crowbar instance where 2 guys attacked him with this crowbar, and after he broke one of them's arm, he handcuffed him to the fence above him by his broken arm, and then he chased the other guy. Probably the most famous story about Bert was he was working for a drugstore, security for a drugstore, and they'd been stealing, so he chased after them as the car was driving off, and he put his head into the car. The guy in the backseat pulled the gun on him, so Bert broke his arm, took the gun off him, but then he gouged his eye and he pulled his eye out, and his eyeball landed on the dashboard. So, but he also got shot himself up by here at the same time and had his own neck broken, so he told us he had to support his neck with a nappy and a towel. What happened then was they tried to do Bert for maiming, so Tim Tackett had to be like a character witness, so somebody who did martial arts, to if it went to court, to say that what he did was reasonable and necessary, you know, that it wasn't that bad, what removing the guy's eye, considering that he had a gun pulled on him, but it didn't go to court. Apparently Bert did see this person again. He did have his eye replaced, but he had triple vision, and apparently Bert said aye to him. So that was a funny story. What else? He told me he did 5 years for breaking a guy's neck once. There's another story that a 7-Eleven store, there was a girl being held at gunpoint, and Bert was working as a deputy sheriff at the time, so Bert sneaked in the back and put his gun at an odd angle and shot the guy through the occipital bone, and the girl's just standing there screaming. So that was another story. Bert worked all over the place. When he left the Marines, he worked for the government, and they'd send him on different jobs. So he was sent down to Central America, where a dictator was using magic tricks to fool the natives. He was like pretending to be like a medicine man, and he was causing a bit of havoc down there. So they sent Bert down there. Anyway, Bert threw a grenade into his hut and blew him up, and then Bert became the medicine man. So that's another story that he told us. I believe in his combative career, he removed 3 people's eyeballs, and he said all they ever do is scream. So there are other stories, but
what funny stories did you hear about Bert?
Funny stories. So he was working as a traffic cop, and he said he pulled this guy over, and he said this guy got hostile with him. So he got into a stance and tried to kick Bert in the head. So Bert covered, grabbed his leg, dislocated his hip, and the bloke screaming on the floor. And Bert says, I hear this martial arts is pretty dangerous. That's one funny story. Pete Hetrick told me this story. At one of the camps, this was before I met Bert, Bert was signing some autographs on this student's book, and one of the other students, I don't think he believed a lot of Bert's stories. So as Bert signing the autograph, he sneaked up behind Bert and put him in a bear hug, and he said, "What are you going to do now, Bert?" So Bert went with a pencil straight in the guy's eye, and the lad screaming, "Bert, my eye, my eye!" And Bert, he hasn't even turned round, he carries on right, he goes, "You better get someone to take a look at that eye." He used to have this deep voice. He reminded me of Lee Marvin. If you remember the actor Lee Marvin, he was just reminding me of Lee Marvin. So Tim Tackett and Bert were going to see Dan Santo, and Bert made some jerky, so he gave Dan some jerky, and Guru and Santo said, "Hey, this is really good, what is it?" And Bert said, "Dog." Bert told me this story. He said the three blokes attacked him with a tyre iron. So after he knocked them all out, he pulled one of their pants down, and you can imagine where he stuck the tyre iron. So he told Rick Fay, because you've got to get into a gunfight, there's nothing like it. Rick Fay just when he went to join the Marines, they had a Filipino knife fighting instructor teaching the US Marines. This is where he joined the Marine Raiders. And the Filipino knife fighting had an instructor, and he threw Bert a knife, and he says, "Come at me." Well, you don't say "come at me" to a Comanche. So Bert slashed him across the forehead. So he was quite badly hurt. So he went to hospital, but the Filipino knife fighting instructor thought this was quite funny. So now Bert become the instructor, or the assistant instructor, and they spent quite a lot of time together, and Bert learns a lot of stuff from him. So yeah, I'm sure there's other stories I'll think of after. So
Okay. Can you recall any of his quotes?
Quotes. Let's have a look. Yeah. He said he didn't like the 9mm handgun. He said he shot one guy 5 times and he still kept coming. He said everyone I shot with a 45 died, and everyone just went. He said, "Don't touch a man unless you're going to hurt him." He also said once, he said, "You touch a lady gently, you touch a man harder." And the whole seminar just, it was so powerful what he said, the whole seminar just went quiet. It was like, he said, "I studied boxing, judo and karate, and then I really learned how to fight." That's one of his favourite quotes. He said, "Don't point anything at me that doesn't fit comfortably up your ass." One of the lads was trying to take a sneaky photograph of Bert. He didn't really like having his photograph taken. If you asked him, he would, but if you tried to do it on the sneak, he didn't like it. So that's what he said to that particular person. What else? Oh, when you break a man's neck, it breaks at the atlas axis bone, and it sounds like you took a bunch of celery and twisted it apart. That's what a breaking neck sounds like. Hit them till they get heavy. That was another one of his quotes. And feed them their teeth. That'll take the fight out of them.
Okay, can you show some of his dirty fighting tactics?
I can, yeah. Let me just tell you these other stories while they're on my mind. So he was top 10 in bulldogging in the rodeos in the 50s. When I was with him, we were sitting around the table, and a guy brought his knife out and he said, "Bert, can you sharpen my knife for me?" So Bert sat down and he started sharpening this guy's knife, and he was at it for a couple of minutes, and then he just got up and walked off. And I just wondered what he's... Anyway, he came back a few minutes later with this little white towel with elastic bands around it. He sat back down and he opened it up with his own sharpening kit in there. I thought, who walks around with a sharpening kit with him? But that was Bert. He was like a proper cowboy. I was always interested in outdoor skills, so I was asking him about tracking. I'd been told he'd track the famous racehorse. So I asked him what he does when he tracks a person. He said, the first thing I do, I break into their house and look at their shoes. And then he goes, I can see by the way they're walking, and then he's able to follow the tracks that way. I thought that was a brilliant answer. He had a medicine bag he used to carry with teeth in it. He also had 3 Korean scalps in it. He just used to take the very top of the scalp. I always remember him, whenever we were eating, then I spent a lot of time with him when we were having breaks, we'd have something to eat. He'd always put Tabasco sauce on everything he had. That's one memory I got of him. And I always remember him telling this story. He said the CIA approached him and asked him to become one of their trainers. And it was a bit, couldn't understand, you know, how they found him. And the CIA guy said, we've got a dossier on you like that, he said. But I don't think he wants to do that. But he also said the Canadian Mounties had been in touch with him and they wanted him to be their trainer. And he, at that time, in 1990, he was thinking about taking that job. He seemed to be quite interested in training the Canadian Mounties. So, okay, some techniques, Bert Paul techniques. Okay, the very first technique that Bert showed us was the defence against the punch. So when the punch comes in, you grab the tricep and fall to the floor. And it was pretty simple. The key to making it work is to drop your weight. So you grab the wrist and the tricep. Bert was big on grabbing the skin. So he'd enter with a thing called a dive like this, and he grabbed the lat. His fingers were so strong, so you turn like this, then he'd hit here, or hit there. Or if he turns further round, hit the occipital bone there. Okay. So he had this move called the dive. You can also do the same thing, move called the dive, turn it this way, and then you drag the fingers straight into the eyes. Obviously I'm not going to do these too hard. If he's in a different lead, in left lead, I can still do the dive like this, come in, I still turn the skin, but I use what we call the Bert Poe eye attack, okay? And that comes down like this, and then you catch him there, and then he breaks your neck that way. So Bert said in 1953 he was a bouncer down in Long Beach, California. So he said, if somebody causing trouble, he come up behind him, he grabbed by the hair and yank his back like this. When you yank it back violently, the mouth opens. And then from there, you palm heel them on this side here. But because the mouth's open, the head's back, he told us that it breaks the jaw on this side and on this side. And he said it's a really bad break. It also alters the structure of the brain when you pull the head back like this for an easier knockout. So the full technique goes behind, pull, and palm heel hook like this. Bert, even though he's a professional boxer, he always advised always use a palm heel this way or the hook this way if you're fighting in the streets. One of Bert's moves was this motion like this. It's like a modified tiger claw. But you hit with the fingers. You can definitely, I won't do it hard, but you can definitely feel it when you do it hard on the chest. But when you do it on the face, it's a completely different animal. So he enter in like this, he hits him in the face like this and capture him like this, and then you go for the neck break again like this. Okay. This also works against some kind of a tackle. So when he comes to tackle, you step back and you take it into the eyes this way like this. You don't do it once, you do it several times. Okay. To get one in digits into the eye that way. Okay. From the tie-up position, like this, you like the neck break this way. I'll just show you this side. So you can do it this way, or you can do it this way. If you're strong, you can lift up. If you're not as strong as your opponent, you step on the foot and you dive forward, and that breaks the neck. So these are just some of the techniques that Bert showed us 32 years ago. as I said before, Bert was big on grabbing the skin. So if you're working in security and you're trying to control this person, if you just grab his t-shirt or his shirt like this, you got no sensitivity, so if he throws a punch, I ain't going to be able to do nothing about it. So what Bert would advise was grabbing there and there. Obviously he'd get a good squeeze like this, so when the punch come, you could feel which punch was coming. So it's a much better, safer option for yourself, grabbing the skin rather than grabbing the clothing. Okay. So this is a photo of Bert and me back in 1990 when he did allow his photograph to be taken. Yeah, so Bert was a big influence on me and the JKD community back in the late 80s, early 90s. The reason why I'm doing this particular interview is my instructor, Sifu Tackett, asked me to do a short YouTube interview about Bert Poe because he saw the one I did on Larry Hartzell and he wanted a similar one for Bert. So hopefully I've put most of the stuff I remember. There are other stories, some I don't want to talk about, but that's pretty much most of what I know about Bert Poe. Hope you enjoyed it.